Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the only place where we're going to try and connect the subatomic weirdness of quantum mechanics with, well, the equally strange world of global politics.
And somehow make it all make sense.
Exactly. And hopefully make it understandable before you've finished your first coffee. I mean, the sheer scope of what we have on the docket today it's vast.
It really is. We are looking at an immense volume of pretty complex information.
We're navigating everything from, the fundamental nature of gravity all the way to these incredibly high-stakes diplomatic meetings happening right now in Latin America, in Eastern Europe.
And then there's the real-world fallout, the stuff that affects people on the ground. We have to talk about these devastating floods in Asia, and then some deeply, deeply worrying allegations about military accountability being suppressed.
It's a lot. And so for you, our listener, the mission for us today is, I think, more crucial than ever. It's to move past the headlines, past the noise, and really get to some clarity.
To get to the context, we have to be almost surgical today, cutting through all that noise to pull out the really important bits of knowledge. We want to give you that essential, impartial context.
Especially when you get into topics like emerging quantum tech or these really sensitive diplomatic flashpoints that are, they're actively shaping the world as we speak. So that's our goal today, to unify these things that seem totally incompatible, pulling together threads that span literally millennia and light years.
So by the time we're done, the goal is for you to be thoroughly, and we stress, impartially informed.
And ready to jump into any conversation, whether it's about spooky action at a distance or the next OPEC meeting. So let's start at the very, very beginning, at the absolute core of reality itself.
The fundamental nature of the universe. And we have to begin with the quest for quantum gravity. This really is, it's consistently called the holy grail of theoretical physics.
Right, and for good reason. It represents this decades-long, almost century-long challenge of taking two of our most successful, brilliant theories of reality and getting them to work together.
To play nice in the sandbox. And those two theories are, of course, general relativity and quantum mechanics.
And just for a quick refresher for anyone out there, general relativity, that's Einstein's baby. It governs the macro world, the big stuff.
Planets, stars, galaxies.
It describes gravity not as a force, like Newton did, but as a curvature of space-time. It explains why planets orbit the sun, why light bends around massive objects. It's incredibly good at what it does, on the large scale.
The problem, the fundamental tension, arises when you try to zoom all the way down, way, way down to the infinitesimal, the subatomic level.
The world of particles, of probabilities, of wave functions.
And down there, general relativity it breaks. It doesn't compute. That's the world of quantum mechanics. So the core problem is that we haven't been able to quantize gravity.
Meaning we haven't found its particle, right, like the other forces have.
Exactly. We haven't found the specific quantum particle, the hypothetical graviton, or the quantum rules we need to describe gravity in the same way we can describe, say, electromagnetism or the strong and weak nuclear forces.
Which brings us to this really provocative new study. It's suggesting we might be looking at this all wrong, or at least that there's another way in.
A very surprising way in. This research proposes that gravity might be able to create quantum entanglement.
Okay, so that's the spooky action at a distance Einstein famously disliked. That instantaneous connection between two particles, no matter how far apart they are.
That's the one. And here's the kicker. The study suggests gravity could entangle particles, even if gravity itself is still a mostly classical force.
Wait, break that down. How is that possible?
Well, it's fascinating. It bridges the two worlds without needing that traditional graviton particle we just mentioned. It suggests that gravity possesses some kind of fundamental quantum property, a hidden feature, that allows it to influence or even generate entanglement between two masses.
So it's not that gravity is fully quantum, but that it has a quantum aspect to it.
Precisely. And if we could detect that entanglement, it would be the first real experimental proof that gravity is not purely a classical phenomenon, as described by Einstein, that it has these quantum underpinnings.
And that would open up a whole new avenue for solving some really deep mysteries, wouldn't it? Like the measurement problem.
It absolutely would. That huge question of how a quantum system, which can be in many states at once, sort of decides which state to be in when we observe it, this could be a new piece of that puzzle.
Okay, so this is huge for theoretical physics, black holes, the Big Bang, but let's bring it back to Earth for a second. What are the practical implications? How does this affect you, the listener?
Well, think about the future of technology, specifically quantum technologies, quantum computing and quantum cryptography.
Right, these super powerful computers that are also incredibly delicate.
Exactly. Current quantum computers are unbelievably sensitive to environmental noise, a stray vibration, a temperature change, and that noise destroys the fragile quantum states, qubits that they use for computation. It's called decoherence.
So if we understand how gravity, of all things, influences entanglement,
We might be able to harness it, or even shield against it. It's possible that gravity could act as a sort of natural stabilizing mechanism for these delicate qubits. It could provide a totally new way to achieve fault tolerance, which is the holy grail for building a useful quantum computer.
and what about for security, for cryptography?
The ultimate goal there is something called quantum key distribution, or QKD. It uses entangled photons, particles of light, to create communication keys that are, in theory, completely unhackable.
Because if anyone tries to intercept it, the entanglement breaks and you know you've been compromised.
You've got it. So if gravity can induce entanglement, it opens up the wild possibility of using mass, not just light, to generate and distribute these keys. We're talking about hypersecure quantum communication systems that go way beyond what we can do with photons. It could fundamentally change the future of encryption.
From the nature of reality to the nature of our own minds. Let's talk about the human brain, because there are some new findings that outline 5 distinct eras of brain development across our lifespan.
And this isn't just about, a baby's brain growing into an adult's brain. We're talking about distinct epochs of really significant, measurable change in how we think and how our brain is wired.
The big takeaway here, the one that I think will resonate with a lot of people, is that it totally challenges our cultural timelines of what it means to be an adult.
It really does.
Yeah.
The research suggests that the brain's fully integrated adult mode, the point where your critical thinking, your risk assessment, your impulse control, all that wiring is fully stable.
That point might not happen until your early 30s.
We're talking 32, 33 years old. That's a profound finding.
I feel so validated by this data.
I think a lot of people in their late 20s just breathed a sigh of relief. It suggests that what we call late adolescence or early adulthood is actually a much, much longer period of intense neurological development than we ever assumed.
And that reframes almost everything, doesn't it? From the expectations we put on young adults to how we structure education.
And, critically, legal responsibility. Think about it. If the complex wiring that governs your executive function is still under massive construction in your late 20s, what does that mean for the age of majority in really high-stakes situations?
Yeah. Should we be reviewing the entry ages for mandatory military service based on peak cognitive maturity, or these super high-pressure corporate fast-track programs that chew up and spit out 25-year-olds?
It seems we should. This insight gives a biological reason for, frankly, a bit more patience. It suggests that policies around things like criminal justice, especially when it comes to repeat offenders or crimes committed under intense emotional stress by young people, have to account for this prolonged development.
It basically confirms that feeling of still figuring things out well after you've graduated isn't some kind of character flaw.
It's a biological reality. Your brain is still paving the highways.
All right, let's pivot from deep science to deep history. Let's dig up some lost worlds. We have some really incredible archaeological finds that are challenging what we thought we knew about ancient capabilities.
Starting with an artifact that has, by all accounts, genuinely stunned researchers in the Mediterranean. It's a 1,500-year-old device that they are only describing as not typical of ordinary excavations.
And when an archaeologist, who is usually very cautious with their language, says something is not typical.
That is academic code for this makes no sense and might change everything we thought we knew.
Right. This device, found in a well-preserved context, hints at a level of technological capability or maybe a cultural practice in that civilization that just goes way beyond the usual narrative of, pottery and simple farming tools.
We are still waiting for the full analysis, but it's these unique one-off finds, kind of like the Antikythera mechanism, that always push the boundaries.
Yeah.
They force us to completely re-examine what early cultures were truly capable of.
From mysterious gadgets to truly sophisticated civil engineering, let's head down to South America, to Bolivia's Great Tectonic Lakes region.
This is a huge one. Researchers there have found powerful evidence of incredibly sophisticated indigenous ingenuity that, again, completely overturns what was assumed about the Amazon.
For decades, the prevailing wisdom was that the Amazon soil was just too poor, too nutrient-leached to support large, settled, complex societies.
That assumption was wrong. What they found were these extensive, sustainable agricultural systems. We're talking about raised fields, intricate canal networks, all developed by indigenous societies over centuries.
And that system of raised fields, that was a brilliant adaptation to the environment there, right?
Just brilliant. It's a dynamic wetland ecology. So this system allowed them to manage the seasonal flooding, improve the drainage, and concentrate all the fertile topsoil. It created a sustainable food source that supported large populations for a very long time.
This isn't just history, is it? It feels incredibly relevant today.
Oh, absolutely. This is a massive argument for preserving what's called biocultural heritage. It's recognizing that indigenous knowledge holds these crucial, practical insights for modern food security and conservation, especially as we're all facing the challenges of climate change.
Their ability to manage a volatile ecosystem for long-term stability is something modern engineers are still trying to figure out.
And let's stay in that monumental category. Amateur archaeologists over in England, and you have to give credit to the dedicated amateurs out there, they've uncovered a 4,500-year-old burial ground.
Which is an amazing find on its own.
It is, but it's situated directly on top of a monumental ceremonial site that is estimated to be 12,000 years old.
Wow. So a 7,500-year continuity of use, using the exact same sacred spot across completely different cultural eras. That's breathtaking.
It is. It connects this find on an English farm directly to these globally significant sites. You think of the massive stone circles at Stonehenge, also in England, or the even older pre-pottery site of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
It suggests that certain places on the landscape just held this immense ritual and cosmological significance that spanned vastly different human societies.
It does. It reinforces this idea that these sites weren't just chosen randomly. They were probably aligned with astronomical events, or they served as these primal gathering points where communities literally defined their identity and their history for millennia.
That human need for symbolic continuity is it's palpable across that timescale.
It really is.
Now, before we rocket into our next segment, let's just briefly touch on a bit of light intrigue. The eternal speculation around venomous dinosaurs.
Ah, yes. The classic trope beloved of blockbuster movies everywhere.
So is there any truth to it?
Well, the discussion is definitely alive in paleontological circles, but the hard evidence, the physical evidence, just isn't there yet. We don't have the fossils.
Unlike with, say, snakes or other venomous animals today.
Exactly. With modern venomous animals, we can clearly see in the fossil record the evidence of venom glands or specialized delivery systems like grooves in the teeth or fully hollow fangs. We just don't have any clear indicators like that in dinosaur fossils.
So for now, they remain in the realm of exciting speculation.
Purely hypothetical, fun to think about, but not supported by the data we have right now.
All right, keep your fingers crossed for a fossilized syringe fang in the future. We need to take a quick beat, and when we get back, we are leaving the ancient past behind and rocketing straight into the orbital future. We're talking space manufacturing, the rise of agentic AI, and a deep dive into the true cost of rage bait. Stick with us. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are now shifting gears into the future of technology, and we're kicking things off way up in orbit with a company called Varda Space Industries.
Their goal, and I love this quote, is to make space manufacturing boring.
Which is, counterintuitively, just about the most exciting thing you could say in that industry.
It really is. Varda, which only launched back in January of 2021, is carving out a very distinct and, I think, incredibly valuable niche for itself. They're not just another company building rockets.
They're an in-space industry player. They're focused on production.
Exactly. Their core mission is to manufacture high-value goods off-planet. And right now their focus is on pharmaceuticals.
And they're doing this to take advantage of microgravity, right?
Yes, the unique conditions of microgravity. See, down here on Earth, gravity interferes with certain processes like crystallization. It can lead to imperfections in the crystal structures.
Which is A huge deal for developing certain types of drugs.
A massive deal.
Mm.
In microgravity, you can achieve better, purer, more uniform crystal structures, which is vital for some of these next-generation pharmaceuticals. And they've got serious backing for this idea.
They were backed early on by some big names in Silicon Valley, like Khosla Ventures and Peter Thiel's Founders Fund.
Which is a huge vote of confidence. And they recently secured a massive $187 million Series C funding round. That tells you they're successfully hitting their technical milestones.
Their timeline is pretty key here. They launched their first-generation spacecraft back in June of 2023 on a SpaceX Falcon 9.
And that mission validated the whole process of producing these drugs in orbit.
Oh.
But the smooth ride kind of stopped on the way home.
They hit a regulatory snag, didn't they, with the FAA, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration?
They did. It was about their capsule reentry. Bringing a vehicle back safely through controlled airspace requires this incredibly rigorous safety certification, and the FAA hadn't really streamlined that process yet for private industrial return missions.
That really highlights a critical challenge for this whole emerging orbital economy, doesn't it? It's not just about the rocket science.
Not at all. It's the bureaucracy. It's ensuring that these complex, maybe sensitive products, or even just the hardware itself, can safely splash down without putting populated areas at risk.
They did overcome that, though. Back in February 2024, they had a successful reentry.
Yes, and now they're focused on autonomous operations with their W-series reentry capsules. So when Varda says they want to make space manufacturing boring, they mean routine, reliable, predictable.
The necessary hallmarks of any thriving industrial base, whether it's on Earth or a few hundred miles above it.
Precisely.
All right, let's turn to defense technology advancements happening back here on the ground. We're looking at India's big push for self-reliance through its Make in India initiative.
And this is really significant, especially in the realm of long-range drones. It's a strategic move away from being dependent on foreign military suppliers.
So what are they developing?
India's National Aerospace Laboratories, or NAL, is partnering with a company called Solar Defense and Aerospace Limited, SDAL. And together they're developing these long-range attack drones powered by domestically made Wankel engines.
Okay, Wankel engines. For our listeners who aren't auto or aerospace engineers, why is that specific engine important for a drone?
That's an excellent question. So a traditional engine uses pistons that go up and down. A Wankel engine uses a sort of triangular rotor that spins. The main benefit is a fantastic power-to-weight ratio.
So they're lighter and more compact?
Much lighter and more compact than a piston engine with similar horsepower. This means a 30-horsepower Wankel engine can let a drone carry a heavier payload or strike targets much farther away, in this case over 560 miles, all while using less space and fuel.
And crucially, these aren't just remote-controlled planes. They've got AI-enabled payloads.
Yes, and they're specifically designed to operate in GPS-denied environments. That signals a very serious advancement in strategic military autonomy. They're preparing for sophisticated electronic warfare where GPS signals might be jammed or, even worse, spoofed.
Meanwhile, South Korea is also boosting its capabilities, but through international collaboration.
That's right. Europe's Vega C rocket just launched South Korea's Kogeki ST-7. This is a very advanced Earth observation satellite.
And its goal is high-resolution imaging, right?
Extremely high resolution. It's aimed at critical tasks like environmental monitoring, urban planning, and managing natural disasters with much greater precision than they had before.
Speaking of high-tech competition, the real arms race seems to be heating up in our pockets. We're deep into this integrated AI battle, and ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is taking a big swing at Apple.
A huge swing. ByteDance is partnering with the phone maker ZTE to launch a new smartphone, the Nubia M153, and it's featuring something called the Doubao Mobile Assistant.
And the key word here, according to the reports, is agentic AI.
Yes. And we need to define that for the listener because it's a huge step beyond a simple voice assistant.
Okay, so help us out. What does agentic mean in this context?
Agentic AI means the system doesn't just respond to a simple command like, hey, open my weather app. Instead, it acts as a sophisticated, autonomous digital agent.
So it can do things for you.
It can initiate and complete complex, multi-step actions on your behalf across different apps and functions on your phone. For example, you might say, book me the cheapest flight to Paris next month and buy my mom a birthday gift based on her last 3 online searches.
And the AI would just do all of that.
That's the goal. The AI would then go compare prices across multiple travel apps, book a ticket, and then start the shopping process, all without you having to manually open a single application.
They're clearly leveraging their massive AI expertise from the TikTok ecosystem to diversify their business.
Especially as TikTok faces more and more regulatory pressure around the world, they're trying to create a whole integrated hardware-software experience that challenges that long-standing dominance that Apple and Google have.
Okay, moving from the convenience of AI to some very serious issues in digital governance and aviation security. We have a major safety crisis confirmed by the government in India.
Yes. The Civil Aviation Minister, Ram Mohan Naidu, confirmed in the Rajya Sabha, which is India's upper house of parliament, that flights near Delhi and other Indian airports have faced dangerous interference over the past year.
And we need to be clear about the threats here. The reports mentioned both GNSS interference and GPS spoofing. What's the difference between those, and why is spoofing so much more terrifying for a pilot?
Right. So GNSS stands for Global Navigation Satellite System. That's the umbrella term that includes the American GPS, the Russian GLONASS, and others. Interference is often just jamming blocking the legitimate satellite signal.
So the plane loses its location reference, which is bad.
It's certainly very serious, but the pilot and the systems know they've lost navigation, they get an error. Spoofing is far, far more dangerous.
Why?
Because spoofing doesn't just block the signal, it feeds the aircraft false location data. The plane's navigational instruments are actively tricked into believing they are exactly where they should be. But in reality, they could be miles off course.
Flying in the wrong direction or at the wrong altitude.
Exactly. And that can lead to catastrophic safety issues, especially during a complex landing approach into a busy airspace like Delhi. The fact that the government is acknowledging this is critical. It means they have to push for enhanced technical safeguards, maybe even systems that are less reliant on satellite input.
That is deeply unsettling. And the security discussion doesn't stop in the skies. We have a deeply disturbing report on cyber exploitation.
This is just sickening. An investigation has revealed that over 120,000 home security cameras were compromised for illicit footage.
And the settings where these cameras were placed are unbelievably private. Karaoke rooms, Pilates studios.
And shockingly, even a gynecologist clinic. It is an immense breach of privacy and trust.
And it underscores the danger of very simple security failures that a lot of consumers just overlook.
That's the thing, that hackers are exploiting the most common vulnerabilities. Poor passwords, password 123, and critically outdated software on these internet-connected devices.
The psychological impact on the victims must be immense. You install these cameras for security.
And that very device is turned against you into a tool of exploitation. It speaks volumes about the urgent need for better consumer education and, frankly, stronger default security measures from the device manufacturers themselves. Mandatory software updates.
If your device is connected to the internet, it's a potential door into your life.
On a slightly less terrifying but equally telling note about our digital culture, Oxford University Press has announced its Word of the Year for 2025.
And it is rage bait.
Rage bait. It just perfectly captures the current mechanics of the digital attention economy, doesn't it?
It really does. We've all seen it. It's that online content, an article, a video, a social media post that is deliberately designed or framed to provoke outrage and anger.
And it's done purely for engagement, for clicks, shares, and comments.
And the usage of the term reportedly tripled over the past year. That reflects a profound and, I would argue, an engineered shift in how we consume information.
The underlying economic mechanism is the key thing to understand here. Social media algorithms are optimized for engagement. And as human beings, we engage more intensely with negative emotions or with conflict than we do with accuracy or, positive news.
Conflict is profitable.
That's the insight. The digital economy is fundamentally incentivized to monetize friction and polarization because we are hardwired to stop and pay attention to whatever makes us angry.
The rise of rage bait as word of the year shows that we're all being trained constantly to operate in this state of low-level emotional manipulation.
And it's a perfect follow-up to last year's word, which was brain rot. It shows this continuous cultural reflection on the deteriorating quality and manipulative nature of our online lives.
We know we're being manipulated, but the algorithms are just so effective that we still click the bait.
It's the essential engine of the modern internet.
It really is. When we come back, we are jumping into the high-stakes world of geopolitics. We're looking at the shifting dynamics of the Ukraine conflict, NATO's aggressive new rhetoric, and President Trump's ultimatum to President Maduro in Venezuela. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We are now moving straight into the complex web of global diplomacy and military strategy, starting with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the very fragile process of potential peace talks.
Right, the focus here is on the incredibly challenging dynamic of negotiation. We just had a meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and a team of Ukrainian negotiators led by Rustem Umerov.
And this was in Florida to discuss the peace roadmap that has been floated by President Donald Trump's administration.
And according to Umerov, the talks were described as difficult yet productive.
Difficult yet productive, the language of diplomacy.
Indeed. And the crucial and probably the most complex part of this whole thing is the insistence from the U.S. side that Russia must be included in any final peace deal.
Which sets up the big unknown, right? Will President Putin actually engage in good faith?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. His earlier statements have indicated that a stable ceasefire is, in his view, unattainable if Ukraine maintains its hold on the contested territories, especially Crimea and the annexed regions in the east.
So that's the immovable diplomatic object right there.
It seems to be the main choke point. At the same time this is happening, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in Paris meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron.
This feels like a hedging strategy.
It's absolutely a hedging strategy. This is about securing long-term security guarantees from key European partners and trying to boost European solidarity for what Zelensky calls a fair and lasting peace, which for him is built on recovering Ukrainian sovereignty.
So Ukraine is walking this diplomatic tightrope. They're engaging with the Trump administration's roadmap,
while at the same time cementing these long-term security commitments from key European NATO allies, likely anticipating potential shifts in U.S. foreign policy down the line.
And while this delicate diplomatic dance is going on, the military posturing is still very active, and sometimes spectacularly faulty.
Yes, we received confirmation of a major failure. Russia's advanced intercontinental ballistic missile, the Satan Nikita, exploded during a test launch and crashed.
That's not just a small malfunction, is it, for a strategic weapon like that?
No, that is a huge strategic setback for Russia's military ambitions. This is a missile that's supposed to carry multiple nuclear warheads and be able to evade sophisticated defense shields. A high-profile failure like this raises some very serious questions about reliability, quality control, maybe even supply chain issues affecting their most advanced weapons.
At the same time, the Kremlin is condemning Ukraine's actions in the Black Sea.
That's right. They're pointing to drone attacks on two Russian-affiliated tankers, the Kairos and the Viron, which happened off the coast of Turkey.
A NATO member.
A NATO member. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov labeled these attacks a violation of Turkish sovereignty and a threat to maritime security and international energy infrastructure.
So Russia is seizing on this to paint Ukraine as a disruptive force to the international order.
Precisely. They're saying this shows the essence of the Kiev regime, to use their words. And these maritime attacks right off the coast of a NATO country feed directly into the broader NATO strategy discussion.
Where we're hearing some much more aggressive language lately.
Much more. NATO's top commander, Admiral Giuseppe Cavo-Dragone, is now calling for a more aggressive stance toward Russia.
And that represents a pretty significant rhetorical shift for the alliance, doesn't it?
It's a huge shift. Admiral Dragone's discussion highlighted the possibility of moving beyond a purely defensive posture. He specifically mentioned things like preemptive strikes and retaliatory cyber attacks to counter what NATO defines as Russia's ongoing hybrid war.
Hybrid war being things like disinformation, political interference, infrastructure sabotage.
All of that. And the call for preemptive action is a major escalation. It moves NATO into a much more assertive, proactive posture. But here's the critical contrast, the underlying tension.
While NATO leadership is talking tough,
European members are simultaneously urging the United States to maintain its current troop levels, especially in Eastern Europe. They are deeply worried about potential plans from Washington for further troop withdrawals.
so they're still very dependent on the U.S.
Heavily dependent. This comes from significant European logistical shortfalls, particularly in things like air defense, stockpiles of heavy munitions, and intelligence gathering capabilities. They still rely heavily on the American backstop, which underscores this big gap between the European rhetoric about strategic autonomy and the reality on the ground.
All right, let's look west now to the Americas and the incredibly intense standoff with Venezuela.
Yes, President Donald Trump recently confirmed that he had a phone call with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
And according to reports, that call was not friendly.
Extremely tense is the description. President Trump reportedly issued a direct ultimatum demanding Maduro relinquish power. This public confirmation gives a lot of weight to other reports that military action against Venezuela is being actively contemplated within the administration.
And this is despite polling that shows a majority of the American public is opposed to U.S. military intervention there.
That's correct. And Maduro is using this as a rallying cry. He's publicly called on OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, to defend Venezuela against what he perceives as U.S. threats.
Specifically threats regarding Venezuela's oil reserves, which are the largest proven reserves in the world.
Exactly. He's framing the U.S. pressure as aggression aimed squarely at seizing control of those resources, using democracy promotion as a cover.
And this geopolitical tension has a direct impact on the global market.
It does. OPEC plus 8, which is the larger group that includes Russia, is maintaining steady oil production, and one of the reasons is concern over supply vulnerabilities from Venezuela. Any instability there could disrupt supply, which is one of several factors contributing to rising oil prices.
We also have some serious domestic scrutiny happening within the U.S. regarding recent military operations in that region.
Yes, a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is demanding urgent answers about media reports of a second U.S. military strike on a suspected drug boat off the Venezuelan coast.
And the allegation is that this second strike resulted in the deaths of survivors from the first strike.
That's the core of the inquiry. And it's crucial because it highlights these profound concerns about military oversight, about the rules of engagement, and about adherence to international law during these transnational crime operations.
It connects that high-level geopolitical standoff with Maduro to the essential constitutional checks and balances that are required for U.S. military actions abroad.
Especially when those actions involve civilian casualties or potential extrajudicial killings. The stakes in the Caribbean right now are incredibly high, mixing drug enforcement, oil politics, and direct military posturing.
A truly volatile mix indeed. We are going to take a quick pause, but when we return, we are focusing on crises in Asia, from Taiwan's defense buildup to the tragic fallout from the Hong Kong fire, and a massive push for accountability that spans continents. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are now heading to Asia, where geopolitical tension is ratcheting up, particularly around the critical flashpoint of Taiwan.
Taiwan's president, Lai Ching-te, has proposed a really substantial defense spending hike, and it's aimed directly at countering the growing military pressure from Beijing.
So what are the numbers?
The plan is to raise defense spending to 3.3% of their gross domestic product, their GDP, by 2026, with a long-term goal of hitting 5% by 2030.
And this comes in direct response to Beijing's increasingly assertive posture and their declared intent for complete unification.
Right, with some military experts citing 2027 as a key operational target date for potential invasion. So Taiwan's strategy includes developing this multi-layered air defense network they're calling the T-Dome.
T-Dome, what does that entail?
Think of it as a dense, layered shield. It's designed to provide comprehensive coverage against a whole range of threats: fighter jets, bombers, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles.
So it's not just one system.
Not at all. It incorporates both domestically produced and foreign-supplied missile defense platforms, advanced radar, and importantly, it also integrates robust cyber and electronic warfare defenses to protect all that critical infrastructure, a very expensive deterrent strategy.
And while the U.S. has welcomed this commitment to self-defense, there are some domestic concerns within Taiwan, aren't there?
There are. The opposition party, the Kuomintang, or KMT, has raised serious questions about the sustainability of such high military spending. They're warning it could strain the economy, possibly trigger a regional arms race, and divert funds from essential social programs.
It's that classic guns versus butter dilemma that every nation faces: security spending versus economic stability.
And beyond Taiwan, we're seeing these broader Sino-regional tensions impacting things like cultural exchange and public sentiment.
You mean xenophobia, anti-Chinese sentiment?
Yes. Despite recent high-level diplomatic talks between Chinese President Xi Jinping and leaders like South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung, reports suggest that xenophobia is actually growing in South Korea. It seems to be fueled by these ongoing geopolitical disputes and concerns over regional assertiveness.
And this tension has real, visible fallout.
It does. We saw the abrupt cancellation of a popular Japanese singer's performance in Shanghai, a singer associated with the anime One Piece. This reflects these ongoing, very sensitive nationalist tensions between China and Japan, which are always simmering just below the surface, tied to historical grievances and modern political disagreements.
When culture becomes a casualty, it really shows you how fragile those diplomatic relations are.
It certainly does. Now, shifting to a severe humanitarian and governance crisis in Hong Kong, the devastating apartment fire.
The death toll from that was just staggering. It tragically rose to 151 people, making it one of the city's deadliest incidents in decades.
And the investigation has revealed some shocking details. A critical safety breach involving unsafe renovation netting was found to have contributed significantly to how rapidly the fire spread.
That speaks to more than just this one incident, doesn't it? It points to systemic failures.
Systemic failures in building standards, safety enforcement, and regulatory oversight in one of the most densely populated urban environments on the planet.
And the political fallout has been immediate and severe.
Yes. On one hand, Bloomberg Intelligence predicted record insurance claims. But the more alarming development is the government's response to public dissent and calls for accountability.
The Hong Kong police arrested 13 people on suspicion of manslaughter related to the fire.
They did, which is an acknowledgement of a safety failure. However, they also detained several activists, including a former district councilor and a university student, under sedition laws.
And what was their crime?
Their crime was organizing an online petition demanding an independent, non-governmental inquiry into the fire's causes and the regulatory failures that allowed it to happen.
And the authorities labeled these calls for accountability as what?
As attempts by anti-China and pro-chaos elements to incite unrest. This just powerfully underscores the profound tension between governance and civil liberties in Hong Kong today. Citizens are mourning and demanding answers, and the government's priority seems to be controlling the narrative and stifling dissent.
Amidst all this, though, there was a remarkable story of individual heroism.
Yes, a 28-year-old Filipino domestic worker named Rodora Alcaraz is being hailed as a hero. She bravely saved a 3-month-old baby during the blaze, sheltering the infant in a wet blanket and navigating the chaos to get the child to safety.
A poignant reminder of individual courage in the face of systemic failure.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting, the response from mainland China was complex. While the arrests were happening, public donations from the mainland for Hong Kong fire relief topped 80 million Hong Kong dollars, showing a kind of national solidarity even as the political tensions were simmering.
Okay, let's move to broader accountability challenges and a very controversial case involving a British member of parliament, Tulip Siddiq.
Right. Tulip Siddiq is a sitting UK MP. She's also the niece of Bangladesh's formerly ousted leader, Sheikh Hasina. And she was just sentenced to 2 years in jail in absentia back in Bangladesh.
On charges of corruption and land grabs.
Yes, but she maintains the charges are entirely politically motivated. She says it reflects the deeply tense and fractionalized political climate in Bangladesh, where opponents of the ruling party often face legal challenges that they claim are fabricated.
And this is drawing international attention because she's a sitting Western parliamentarian.
Exactly. Her conviction, even in absentia, raises very serious concerns about the integrity of the judicial process in Bangladesh when it comes to political rivalry.
On the historical front, we have a major push for accountability from the African Union, the AU.
They have renewed their campaign for global reparations. They've designated 2025 as the year of reparations, really intensifying the focus on historical justice.
And what are their demands?
The AU is demanding formal recognition and, crucially, the criminalization of historical crimes, slavery, colonialism, and racial segregation.
Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf highlighted the devastating, lasting consequences of colonial rule.
Yes, arguing for acknowledgement and redress for atrocities, citing historical examples like the horrific Belgian atrocities in the Congo. This collective effort by African and Caribbean nations is a powerful, organized demand for historical justice. It's not just about money, it's about a global shift in recognizing these historical crimes.
Finally, let's bring accountability right back to modern military operations. There's a major inquiry into allegations against UK special forces in Afghanistan.
And a high-ranking officer just gave some damning testimony. The core claim was that senior leadership actively suppressed evidence regarding potential war crimes committed by the SAS, including extrajudicial killings.
That is a profound accusation. It suggests a systemic failure of military oversight.
And a possible cover-up, reaching high into the command structure. The officer's testimony points to a culture where serious allegations of misconduct, like the targeted killing of detainees, were deliberately concealed. It undermines the integrity of these elite forces and highlights this crucial, ongoing struggle for transparency within the most secretive corners of the military.
We've seen the struggle for integrity in governance, commerce, and now the military. When we return, we're shifting our focus from human conflict to the threats facing our planet and our public health. We're talking catastrophic floods and concerning delays in critical environmental laws.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are now focusing on the health of our planet and our own bodies, starting with a major environmental conflict that's brewing in South America. It links global trade, massive infrastructure, and the future of the Amazon rainforest.
We're talking about the Chinese-backed Chancay port in Peru. This is a massive deep-water megaport, and it's intended to create a huge trade shortcut for commodities, minerals, soy, timber between South America and Asia.
Sounds economically promising on the surface. It does, but it comes with a profound and potentially irreversible environmental risk for the Amazon.
Experts are raising the alarm about something called the fishbone effect of deforestation. Can you explain that term for our listeners?
Yes. The fishbone effect describes this geometric pattern of deforestation that happens after a major piece of infrastructure, like a new road, is built into a previously inaccessible forest. The main road acts as the spine of the fish.
And then illegal loggers, miners, or settlers use that main road to build smaller secondary routes branching off from it.
Exactly. Those are the ribs radiating out from the spine.
Yeah.
So the main road doesn't just cut a single line through the forest. It enables countless illegal secondary roads that spread out like a fish skeleton.
And that just accelerates the rate of forest loss exponentially.
It does. It opens up vast, previously untouched areas. And this fragmented deforestation process is what experts worry could push the Amazon closer to a critical tipping point.
The point where it can no longer function as a massive global carbon sink.
Right, it could collapse, leading to vast greenhouse gas emissions and a catastrophic loss of biodiversity. And the real tragedy here is that this is all being made worse by lax enforcement in Peru and surrounding countries.
The laws are on the books, but the political will to enforce them fades when big foreign investment comes knocking.
Exactly. And this same dilemma of policy versus implementation is playing out right now in Europe with the EU Deforestation Regulation, or EUDR.
Now, this is the law that's supposed to ensure that goods sold in the EU aren't linked to recent deforestation anywhere in the world.
That's the one. But the EU is facing intense criticism because they're delaying its implementation by a full year and also simplifying some of its provisions.
Why is a one-year delay so heavily criticized?
Because it undermines market stability and the EU's own environmental credibility. You have companies that have spent a lot of money and resources restructuring their supply chains to meet the original deadline, and now they're facing uncertainty.
And more importantly, it just postpones global action.
It does. Environmental groups argue that every year of delay allows millions more acres of forest to be lost. It sends a very confusing and unhelpful signal to global trade partners.
From these policy failures to the immediate devastating impacts of climate change, we have to address the catastrophic extreme weather events in Southeast Asia.
The floods and landslides caused by Cyclone Doubao and these intense monsoon rains. The death toll has now surpassed 1,000 people across the region.
The scale of the humanitarian crisis is just immense.
The numbers are heartbreaking. Over 500 dead in Indonesia, more than 355 in Sri Lanka, and at least 176 in Thailand. Sri Lanka has declared a state of emergency. Both countries have deployed their military for rescue, for aid distribution, and for that desperate search for the hundreds of people still missing.
It's a massive disaster, and it really highlights the profound vulnerability of these coastal and island nations to the increased intensity of climate impacts.
And we're seeing these impacts everywhere, just in different forms. There are weather warnings out right now for parts of the UK. They're predicted to get up to a month's worth of rain in just 24 hours.
Which raises immediate alarms about flash flooding and this new reality of more intense precipitation events.
Meanwhile, in the atmosphere, Delhi's air quality index, the AQI, is getting worse again. It's nearing the very poor category at 298. After a brief reprieve from some strong winds, a new layer of winter fog and smoke has just settled over the region.
Which is a persistent seasonal public health crisis there, driving up respiratory illnesses every year.
And tying the environment and public health together in a very direct way, a major UK waste firm is warning that disposable vapes, even though they're banned, are causing a serious fire hazard.
It's the batteries, isn't it? The lithium-ion batteries inside.
That's the culprit. When they're improperly disposed of, these batteries are highly volatile, and they are now igniting more than one fire a day in waste collection and recycling facilities.
It just shows how difficult it is to regulate consumer products even with a ban. The risk from improper disposal remains.
It really does. Now, turning to dedicated public health crises, the UN has reported some profoundly alarming news. The global response to HIV has suffered its most significant setback in decades.
A devastating reversal. What's driving it?
It's a combination of factors. The systemic disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic are part of it, but crucially, it's also significant and sustained funding cuts.
The UN specifically mentioned cuts that were initiated during the Trump administration as a major contributing factor.
They did. And experts are now warning this reversal is going to lead to millions of new infections. It's especially affecting children in vulnerable regions who are facing these huge treatment gaps. The battle against HIV is far from over.
And we see severe localized issues making the global problem worse, in Pakistan, for instance.
Yes, Pakistan is experiencing a rapid spread of HIV that's been linked specifically to unsafe medical practices, primarily a systematic lack of sterilization protocols in some healthcare settings. A place of healing is becoming a vector for transmission.
And even in a wealthy nation like France, there's a problem with a knowledge gap.
A shocking knowledge gap. An alarming 1 in 4 French people still mistakenly believe that you can get the virus from kissing.
1 in 4.
1 in 4. And that kind of myth perpetuation is a massive hurdle in combating stigma and promoting safe practices. It just shows the need for continuous public health education.
On a metabolic level, new research has highlighted how a very common dietary ingredient can silently damage our health. We're talking about fructose.
The sugar found heavily in sweetened drinks and processed foods. The new research suggests it may quietly supercharge your inflammation.
How does this do that?
It appears to prime your immune cells. Fructose consumption increases the sensitivity of these cells to bacterial toxins, effectively putting your body in a constant, heightened state of alert. And this chronic low-grade inflammation is a precursor for a whole range of diseases.
And it can make metabolic syndrome much worse.
Significantly worse. It's a direct link from excess sugar to systemic disease risk.
Finally, for people dealing with contaminants, specifically high levels of PFAS, the forever chemicals, in their blood, experts are offering some tangible advice.
Right. Since these chemicals don't break down easily in the body or the environment, the focus has to be on minimizing your intake and supporting your body's natural detoxification pathways.
So that means things like avoidance checking product labels for non-stick or water-resistant coatings?
Yes. Also, installing high-quality water filtration systems like reverse osmosis to get them out of your drinking water, and adopting a liver-supporting diet that's rich in antioxidants and fiber to help your body's natural, albeit very slow, process of elimination.
That's crucial health guidance. And now, let's circle back to something we mentioned earlier, the Greek feta shortage. It sounds like a light topic, but it touches on some profound supply chain vulnerabilities.
It does. The fragility of our global food systems, even when it comes to beloved cheese. Greece is facing a significant livestock crisis. There's an infectious disease outbreak that has forced the mass culling of thousands of sheep and goats.
And that has sparked serious fears of a feta shortage.
Yes, which is not just a dietary staple there. It's a cultural icon, it's a protected designation of origin product, and a major export for the Greek economy. It's a stark reminder of how quickly agricultural vulnerabilities can translate into economic and cultural shock.
From the destruction of ecosystems to the shortage of cheese, the connections are truly endless. We have financial market anxiety, Cyber Monday spending records, and huge social issues coming up next. Don't touch that dial.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Deep Dive. We're moving from global health crises to the high-stakes world of finance and consumer psychology. And financial markets are starting the month of December on a very cautious, risk-off note.
Risk-off, meaning investors are nervous and moving their money to safer assets.
Exactly. Futures for the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all slipped, signaling some bearish sentiment. Investors are clearly nervous about global instability and what the latest economic indicators are showing.
And this nervousness is being linked directly to a couple of external global factors.
Yes, particularly some unexpected weakness that was just reported in China's factory activity, which has a ripple effect on global supply chains. And there are also these mounting fears over a potential unexpected interest rate hike in Japan.
Compounding all that anxiety, Bitcoin plunged below the $86,000 mark.
Which shows that high volatility in the crypto space, and it mirrors that broader economic uncertainty about monetary policy around the world. But we did see one notable bright spot in Asia.
South Korea's November exports beat their forecasts.
They did. driven primarily by strong global demand for semiconductors and automobiles. That's a strong, localized recovery signal in those key high-tech manufacturing sectors.
But meanwhile, it is Cyber Monday 2025, and consumers seem to be diving headfirst into a spending frenzy, almost ignoring those economic headwinds.
We are seeing extraordinary deals, discounts of up to 50% off from major brands like Apple, Amazon, Lego, Dyson, and analysts are predicting that this year's Cyber Monday might even smash previous spending records.
It's a fascinating psychological contradiction, isn't it? You have high economic anxiety on one hand, but it's mixed with this unprecedented spending that's fueled by deep discounts.
It speaks to a profound belief in consumerism, even if a lot of it is being funded by credit.
So let's talk Collector's Corner for a minute. Fans are apparently debating which LEGO deals are the ones that really matter.
Yes, like the massive LEGO Star Wars UCS Death Star set, which is priced at a hefty $999.99 versus the heavily discounted UCS Venator Starship set.
For our listeners who might not be steeped in the world of plastic bricks, what does UCS mean?
UCS stands for Ultimate Collector Series. These are the flagship, most detailed, and most expensive sets that LEGO produces. They're for serious adult fans.
And that debate whether the sheer complexity and size of the Death Star justifies that price tag versus the great value of a discounted Venator.
That is peak consumer psychology. It's the intersection of nostalgia, engineering appreciation, and sheer spending power that really defines the holiday retail season.
Right. Shifting sharply to corporate ethics. The UK regulator, Ofcom, has imposed a huge £24 million fine on Virgin Media.
A very hefty fine. And it was levied because of what Ofcom called serious and systemic failings that left thousands of vulnerable telecare customers at risk of harm.
And these are customers who rely on telecare systems, which are connected by Virgin's landlines, for essential emergency communication.
For medical issues, for falls, things like that. This negligence towards their most vulnerable customer segment raises some very serious questions about corporate responsibility, especially when essential infrastructure services are privatized.
On a personal financial note, we have some intriguing advice from a millionaire for middle-class wealth accumulation.
The central strategy here is about shifting your fundamental financial mindset. The argument is that the middle class habitually views money that's earned as money to spend on immediate consumption.
A new car, a vacation, a new TV.
Exactly. The critical shift is to adopt a mindset that's focused on long-term investment, savings, and wealth preservation. It's a fundamental behavioral change that unlocks the power of compounding and long-term wealth building. It's about prioritizing immediate investment over immediate gratification.
Finally, we have to touch on two contrasting community issues that really highlight both the worst of human actions and the best of human resilience. First, the absolutely tragic mass shooting at a children's birthday party in Stockton, California.
Just a senseless act of gun violence. It happened at a banquet hall. 3 children aged 8, 9, and 14, and one 21-year-old man were killed. They were among over 100 attendees.
It's a horrific incident that has shocked that community, and it highlights the prevalence and the indiscriminate nature of gun violence in public spaces. The authorities are urgently seeking witnesses.
A truly awful story. But on a note of incredible life-altering resilience, we want to highlight the story of Chimenenge. She's a 32-year-old Nigerian woman with disabilities, and she's living in an internally displaced persons, or IDP camp, in Gibajimba, Nigeria.
And as a wheelchair user, she faced immense challenges in that camp.
The basic facilities, paths, toilets, water points, were often completely inaccessible to her. So she took initiative. She became this powerful advocate, and she formed a disability association to demand better conditions.
And her persistence actually worked.
It forced the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, to completely redesign and rebuild the camp. They constructed nearly 4,000 emergency shelters and facilities, including accessible toilets and water points, all specifically designed for people with disabilities.
Her advocacy is just a powerful illustration of how individual determination can force these large institutional organizations to recognize and address the critical need for inclusion and dignity, especially in these vulnerable displacement settings.
It turns a temporary camp into a place that actually respects the rights of all of its residents. It's an inspiring example of overcoming systemic barriers through sheer persistence and community organizing.
The complexity of our world is endless.
So when you look across this immense stack of information we've gone through today, from the fundamental science of gravity all the way to the geopolitical chaos in Asia and the Americas, What really stands out is this persistent intersection of human conflict and human vulnerability.
Yeah, you see geopolitical aggression, which leads to military posturing and economic instability.
And it runs right alongside these massive climate and public health vulnerabilities, whether it's the catastrophic flooding or that alarming systemic setback in the global HIV response, which was driven in large part by funding cuts.
We've talked about these incredible future-shaping advancements in space tech and this new agentic AI, and yet at the same time, we are still grappling with ancient problems.
The systemic suppression of war crime evidence by UK Special Forces leadership, the violent crackdown on dissent after the Hong Kong fire tragedy, the jailing of political opponents like the British MP Tulip Siddiq in Bangladesh.
It just reinforces the essential value of nonpartisan journalism, doesn't it? A belief that citizens need unbiased reporting to navigate these complex truths, free from political spin.
A commitment that was championed by figures like Sir Andreas Whittam-Smith, the co-founder of The Independent who recently passed away. And that commitment is more vital today than it has ever been, because the truths we uncover are often deeply inconvenient to those in power.
Absolutely. So here is the provocative thought for you to carry forward from this deep dive. We've seen today how high-level corruption and the suppression of evidence, from that military war crimes inquiry to the regulatory failures that led to the Hong Kong fire runs, in parallel with these massive systemic global health failures, like the setback in the HIV response or even the agricultural vulnerability that led to the Greek feta shortage. Is it possible that the central challenge of the 21st century is less about generating new knowledge, because we have the quantum gravity theories and the sophisticated AI, and more about finding the political and institutional will to enforce the safeguards we already have, to uphold the rule of law, and to confront the inconvenient truths we already know?
It seems less like a failure of discovery and more like a failure of implementation and accountability. A profound question to end on.
That's it for this edition of The Deep Dive. We hope this has been your shortcut to being thoroughly and thoughtfully well-informed. Keep asking questions, keep digging, and keep that intellectual curiosity burning.
Until next time.
Enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.